Hey everyone, welcome to the show tonight. My name is Dr. Asatar Bear, my co-teacher here, Leah Schaefer.
Welcome, everyone. We're happy you're here.
Tonight we're talking about change and the process of growing through change and embracing change, and also the theme of self-reliance. And
Yeah.
we're all of us going through so much, and Leah and I too. I mean, like we talk, we compare notes. We are moved to share this stuff because it's helpful to us, but I think meditation is the most helpful when you really use it for the issues that you're dealing with. um,
Yeah.
I mean, there's sort of like general things that are helpful for everyone, but the best is when you really key in on you the issues that are really big for you right now, and with the energies that you need right now. And of course, this is hard to know, right? Like from within yourself, like it's hard to diagnose your own condition. You know, um,
hmm
Traditionally the role of a spiritual teacher, right? Um, but
hmm
that is where, to me, like where the real rubber meets the road. That most of the progress comes from regular practice, but you
hmm
need to be practicing in a way that feels really connected to where you're growing in your life. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. It needs to be real. Like, yeah. That is the thing that it's like I don't know. I feel like there's so much out there that you can just do and be very superficial about. And I feel like I sound terrible saying this, but I feel like most people when they meditate, they're not going as deep as they can, and they're staying on a very surface level of the meditation potential within themselves, which who am I to judge how deep somebody should go with their practice, right? So, but at the same time, I'm like, but there's so much more. Like, don't you don't you want to know though? Don't you want to know like your own potential? Um, and there's nothing better than looking at like the really difficult things within ourselves to motivate the direction of those deep meditations. So, like when I'm having an issue, when I'm having a problem, or I have a big change, right, like in my life, which causes a bunch of stuff to come up for us, then it's like, whoa, now there's actually something to work with. And like, because there's something to work with, that
Yeah,
gives us this empowerment to do something with what's happening, and like to make it very real for ourselves. I can't emphasize that enough, actually, because I'm not just sitting there with my nose, you know what I mean?
no, that's very well said. And it's not about going deep as a kind of, oh, look how deep I'm going. Oh, I'm really meditating.
Wow.
So, right?
I'm the deepest meditator.
Oh God, everyone needs to practice.
I
you know,
need
it's about doing the work that you need to do at this moment, right? It's about like
Yeah.
how is your heart and soul and spirit longing to grow, right? Because we are here to grow, we're here to develop, we're here to unfold our infinite potential. And that causes this yearning within us, right? We yearn
Mhm.
for change. Um,
Yeah.
and and we feel frustrated when we feel blocked. And but change is also very hard, I mean,
Yep.
it's one of these things.
Lose, lose, just no matter which way we go.
Well,
Sorry.
li
No,
life
not
is
just
difficult.
joking. Not joking. What?
We have
What did you
we
say?
have our friend, Shakur has joined us tonight. Hello, my friend.
Hi.
Good to
Thank
see
you
you.
for being here. Thank you so much for
So,
being here. And
and
so
our
yeah,
other
and
our other theme. No, go ahead.
oh, I was also going to talk about our other theme, self-sufficiency, like with
Yeah,
uh self-sufficiency and self-reliance, autonomy, things like this. Like in a certain way, I mean, we in a certain way, like, we do that a lot in our culture, but it's almost like I feel like in some ways we do that in the wrong ways. Like we need each other as like guiding lights as a village. We need each other very deeply, but we need to believe in ourselves and we need to believe in our ability to do what we want to do. So if somebody says, "Here's the guiding light," I have to then believe in myself that I can make it there, or go in that direction. And
Right,
meditation is such a great way to develop that, to develop autonomy within myself and self-sufficiency within myself. Because like, if I'm going through something emotional, I can rely on my therapist only however much money I have. I can rely on I don't actually have a therapist, but like I can rely on my friends, however much, actual energy, emotional capacity that they have at any given moment. But what I
right.
can always rely on an infinite amount is my practices. And so, and again, opening up my heart to the infinite energies. So it's a great
Yeah.
way to empower ourselves.
Yeah. I think that we want to think about it like for the right reason, right?
Hmm.
That the changes that we yearn for, the self that we are longing to become, um, that is coming from within. That's a thing that we do uh, because of what's within us, not because of others' expectations, not because of pressure, not because people think we
Mm.
should, or but I think that a wonderful thing can happen when you take the love and connection that you have with others and let that rededicate you to your own path. That
Yes,
it's
exactly.
not just about being the best version of yourself for yourself. That's also for others. That's
Hmm.
also out of love for others. And I think
Hmm.
that's good to keep in mind, but it is coming from within each one of us. So
Yeah. I, yeah.
hey, I go
I
to a
love
therapist.
therapists. I love therapists.
I do too.
I
Very
I
helpful.
studied psychology. I have a spiritual mentor who is technically a therapist. So I guess I have a therapist in that way. But anyway, um, but
Leah's
I
not
love
knocking therapy
therapists.
at all. Right.
What?
No,
I
no,
love
go ahead. Neither Leah nor I are
um,
knocking therapy for sure.
yeah. Um, okay. But the self-sufficiency, so one of the things so I read about self-sufficiency was like it was from a book about self-esteem, and so, like, if we need by Nathaniel Brandon, and so who's a therapist. So we need self-sufficiency in order to be self-empowered. Like, it's like one of those things, like, we need to be able to rely on ourselves. I think this is really harsh, but he says in the it just sticks with me though, like, he says in the book, he's like, "Nobody's coming, like, nobody's gonna save you." And I think that's so mean and terrible. And at the same time, like, I partially believe it because, like, I very much feel like we have to save ourselves. Like, if I don't love myself, if I don't save myself, if I don't bring myself to my next step, whatever that next step might be. So say a big change happens and it's not a good one, right? Like, not like a positive change.
Right.
Um, I have to like save myself or give myself the momentum to get to that next step. I have to do it. Nobody's going to do it for me.
Yeah.
They can encourage me, but they can't do it for me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's just a really important part of self-empowerment. And so you want to believe in yourself and maybe even reflect in our meditations today, what is your next step? So like w- where do you want to go and what is your next step? And do you believe in yourself that you can get there?
It's also very empowering. I mean, like you're saying, self-reliance, taking responsibility for yourself, right? You cannot change the past, and you don't have much control over what others do, but you know, I can take responsibility for who I am moving forward, right? And
Yeah.
that's a very empowering uh, step to take. It's a very empowering attitude. We need that empowerment to do the inner work. Because it's hard work. It takes courage. It takes fortitude. We need to um, feel like it's our work to do.
Mhm. That's beautifully said.
Well, let's do a
Mm.
meditation. Um, since
Yes,
that's what
I
we're
love
we're
it.
here
I love
experiencing.
meditating with you, Asatar.
Me too.
So
It's
excited.
that's why partly why
You love meditating with you too, Asatar.
I met with you. I would
I'm
not have you on the
joking. I
show.
know.
Sorry,
I
wait, I
know.
didn't feel that way.
I know. I'm just kidding. Okay. Okay, everybody, calm down. It's serious meditation time.
Well,
Oh.
everyone, take
Oh.
your good upright posture once you're done laughing, and just feel your uh, weight settling down into your sits bones, and feel as though the top of your head is being lifted. And it's such an art to be able to sit in a way that is upright and yet relaxed. It is so often the case that when we sit straight or stand straight, we're very tense. So, can you sit in such a way so that you feel like your heart, your spirit, is what's lifting you up? There is a certain amount of muscular tension that is needed to keep yourself upright. The core has to be engaged, but perhaps it needs to be engaged less than you think. Perhaps as you breathe, you can just examine your muscular tension, starting at the top of your head. One of the first places that I notice it in myself is in my neck. Having a lot of neck pain today, in fact, which is actually kind of rare for me, but I notice that my head is often out of line. My head is often forward, so it often feels better for me to just sit back and allow my head to be in line. Sometimes I go too far with this, sometimes I'm sitting back too far. That's unusual for me, but might be something you're experiencing. And then you might feel that tension more in the front of your neck, or you might feel it in your abs. If you're leaning too far back, your abs will be needing to be extra engaged to prevent you from just flopping over backwards. If you're too far forward, you might feel that in your neck if your head is too far forward, or if your whole upper body is too far forward, you'll probably feel that in your lower back, maybe in your upper back. So just make some subtle adjustments, small adjustments as you breathe, settling into your posture can be very powerful. As you may know, I teach heart rhythm meditation. It's a method that comes out of Sufism, and the method involves making the breath optimal, making the breath deep, slow, rhythmic, heart centered, and full, tuning the intent goes with the breath toward the energies that you need. The breath is the foundation. So we begin by making it deep, and that means allowing your belly to expand as you breathe in and contract as you breathe out. It should feel like your belly blows up like a balloon. We're so often keeping our bellies armored, not allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, particularly if we're upright, because that is typically when we're in action. So you see, meditation is very interesting just on a physical level because the posture is one of action, but we're sitting and we're being still and going within. So that active, energized posture, what happens with it? Well, it keeps us alert, keeps us awake, keeps our energy up, even as we relax, even as we go within. When you sleep, you also relax, you also go within, but we are going within with a lot of energy, with a lot of focus, our body and mind in an active state, even though we are seeking stillness. And just this posture and breathing deeply, because breathing deeply signifies relaxation. We are enacting a kind of paradox here. Relaxed yet energized, strong yet vulnerable, in the sense of open, in the sense of letting down our guard from ourselves and allowing what is within us to simply be. Work on making your breath slow, so extend your exhalation. Breathe out more so that your exhalation takes longer. Breathe in more so that your inhalation takes longer. Now you would like to make the breath heart centered and rhythmic as well. Do that in several ways. We do that by breathing into the heart and out from the heart, feeling as though it is your heart that is breathing, connecting your heart to that stream of energy, vitality, light, love, and truth that is the breath. We also do it by feeling the physical heartbeat and by bringing these beats into harmony with the breath. Now, this is difficult because you have to pay attention and really look for your heartbeat. We've seen that some can feel it right away and some cannot. Perhaps it's half and half, something like this. So, if you can feel your heartbeat, if you're in that, tune into it and allow your breathing to be the same number of beats as you breathe in, same number of heartbeats as you breathe out. Your mind is occupied in counting the beats, in focusing on your heartbeat. Now there's layers to feeling your heartbeat, so if you can feel it, try to notice more about it. Notice the character of the beat. Can you feel the double part of the beat? Notice where in your body you feel it. Do you feel it in your hands? Do you feel it in your head? Do you feel it in your chest? Do you feel it in one of these places and then some small amount of time later, do you feel it elsewhere? If you are not feeling your heartbeat, don't despair, don't worry. Your heart is still beating. What a gift. Your heart is just hiding, that's all. But your heart is still there, still filled with love, filled with longing, still benefiting from your attention. So take your hand and place it on your heart. This can help to bring the focus. It's even more powerful if you do two hands. For me, the pressure of one hand on top of the other makes me feel my pulse in my hand, especially in my fingertips. A light pressure will often give you that sensation of the pulse. It doesn't matter if you feel it in your chest. If you're struggling to feel it, you look for that signal anywhere you can find it. It's okay if you feel it and then it goes away. You just keep searching for it. Meditation is an exercise first in focusing the mind. That is not where meditation ends, but it's where it begins. By focusing the mind, we unify our mind with our activity. Practice of meditation is the practice of unity. As you breathe in, feel that your heart is breathing. Your heart connects you to all the other hearts in the world, in the universe. Why is this so? You know that your heart is connected if you have ever been moved by art in any fashion. What is it that moves us about a story, a song, a painting, anything? It's you enter into the feeling of the artist. And how could you do that if it wasn't the same feeling, if you didn't have basically the same feelings? You know, you have them perhaps about different things, right? They connect to different things. The feeling itself is the same. Emotions have universal quality in that way. As you breathe into your heart, having made your breath deep, slow, rhythmic, and heart centered, we want to add the power of the breath. And we do this by making the breath full, by expanding the breath so that it is much bigger than our normal breath. And we do this by squeezing the abdominal muscles, bringing the belly button toward the spine as we exhale. And then opening, allowing the breath to come in, first into the belly, and then opening the ribs and finally the chest, so that we are using the entire breathing mechanism. And we should feel some movement between the pelvis and the collarbone. That is the operative area of breath. So even if you're sitting very still in heart rhythm meditation, you should feel some movement in your abdominal and thoracic areas between your pelvis and collarbone, like I say. The bigger the breath gets, the more slow it must become. So I said to breathe in rhythm with your heartbeat. But what rhythm do you choose? When you're learning about the breath, perhaps you choose 4 beats in and 4 beats out. As you develop some proficiency, I would like you to get to 8 beats in, 8 beats out. If you sit for a long time, even that might feel short. You might go to 12, to 16, to 20, to 24. you place the beats into a count of 4 using a sacred name. For me, it is the name Allah, the name of God, Sufi tradition. So rather than saying to myself 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., I'm saying Allah, 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 Allah. That four-part rhythm is an ancient one and a very primal one. So we break it into groups of 4. We don't really need to count it. We know that it's 4. And so you begin to develop a sense of it like with music. There is a paradox that the Sufis speak of, that life and all that exists is perfect and yet can be improved. It's like a koan. How can life be perfect when it's filled with suffering, filled with limitation, filled with longing that is not always fulfilled? And yet the perfection is there, and the perfection is its very nature. And whenever we lose track of that, whenever we go into despair, how soothing it is, how helpful it is to go into that place of perfection. And if this is true of life, it is also true of each one of us. Your heart is perfect and yet can be improved. As you breathe in, think of that perfection. Perhaps it begins as merely a concept. Maybe it's a concept that you struggle to wrap your mind around. What is perfection? And ask yourself that as you breathe it in. Try not to get too hung up on any one answer. Let your mind flow. For there is no answer that your mind can contain. As you breathe out, feel that longing for improvement, that longing for growth, that which moves us forward, that which will not stand still, which always seeks to grow, to improve, to develop, to become. Perhaps you see and feel that our self reliance depends on both of these aspects. That being in touch with the infinite perfection, and at the same time, the drive which moves us endlessly toward fulfillment, toward our potential. Even though our potential is like the horizon, it will recede as we progress. All right, and when you're ready, you can end your meditation.
Mm. Thank you, Asatar. Mm. Oh,
Mhm.
it's so funny because when you brought up, life is perfect as it is, all that came up inside of me was like, no, it's not. It's just like, all this. How- I had to like just like, oh, this isn't because it drummed it all up for me. But then I thought about today, so I do energy healings and I do private sessions with people in trauma recovery and addiction recovery. And today I was working with a young woman who the amount of abuse that she's been exposed to is really severe. And it was what was fascinating to me about her was that she was just inverting it into like a very strong internal power. And she wanted to, her life goal is to end up to become a lawyer, um, to basically seek justice for people that need it, right, or need representation like that. And I 100% believe that she's going to do that. But she like had such an intense amount of power within her. She just like she really held the energy. And to
Mm,
me, and to me it was like she was taking this horrible thing and then she was turning herself into a catalyst for change, and a catalyst for protecting those that don't have protection and for being the one that people can trust because she couldn't trust the people that she was supposed to be able to trust,
yeah,
you know? And so in that way, like it's not it's clear like her that is not perfect. That is not a perfect scenario.
Right.
of what she went through, what she goes through, what she's been through. But the fact that she is using that to create her own power, I think that is when the perfection is seen or can be manifest. Because like
Yeah.
instead of taking the waste and turning it into fertile soil, like that to me is whenever the perfection can become manifest. And maybe that's what it is like this constant balancing between the positive and the negative within existence.
Yeah.
But
I think that's a great example. I mean, you have to kind of, this has to become real, because
yeah.
it's just words, it's just constructs, Um,
Hmm.
but I think
What do
about
you
it some.
think about? Yeah.
I think about it sometimes with something like a tree. I
Hmm.
mean, like if you see a sapling of a tree, you know, I mean, usually we're like, oh, how beautiful, we're not like, look at this little piece of shit, this is a tiny tree, you're nothing, like we don't say that of trees, right? Like, why do we say that of ourselves? Why do we, if we see a tree
Yeah.
that's grown through a fence, or in some challenging conditions, like sometimes you see a tree in a crack, right? That tree is going to be smaller. I mean, but we don't tend to say like, yeah, well, that's a crappy tree. We say like, wow, you really have overcome some
Look what
adversity, or
it's
what a
done.
survivor. I mean, like,
Hmm.
we
Hmm.
can appreciate that in a tree usually. I mean, I think, right? Like, why can't we do the same with people? Why can't we say, yes, there's more that you could become, but here's where you are now. Let's appreciate that.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, we
Yeah.
have a comment here. I understand Allah is rural Aramaic, pronounced as such. Um, yeah, in Aramaic it would be Allaha. They had the extra syllable. You know, I sometimes say a lot, goddess. That's nice. Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know
I didn't
that.
know that
That's
one.
cool.
Yeah,
That's a
that's
neat
good.
one. Thank you for telling us that. I love
I
that.
think this is all part of it. You choose a word that feels sacred to you, and even
Yeah.
that expresses your mood. I mean,
Yeah.
because all of this is important. All of this is working with spirit and bringing it into your heart, and that's what it's about. Um, for
Choosing your
most,
word is such a sacred process by itself. Choosing the words
yeah,
to put on your heartbeat is a really sacred process by itself. Yeah.
absolutely. We might use numbers as an introduction, but we like to get to a point where we're using a word for the rhythm, or using a phrase for the rhythm.
Let's meditate.
All right.
So, go ahead and find your postures, everybody. Do a stretch if you need a stretch. Honoring your body. I can definitely relate to the second part of Asidar's sentiment of the improvement that's needed. Ah, and definitely when I'm in a certain meditation space, that's when I feel the perfection, or it feels like the perfection is present when there's that perfect balance, and start to get there by balancing your breath. Deep, full, rhythmic breathing. One of the most simple things we can do, and yet one of the most profound. And then try to dive within. So instead of living in our head or living in the past or the present, I mean, not the present, but the future, dive into yourself, dive into your true self, into your heart as you breathe. And that can be very difficult when we are suffering. And so, if you are in a position of suffering right now, you're being extremely brave by diving into yourself, by sitting with yourself. And I'm very happy that you are doing that. And you want to have more breath. The more intense the emotion, the more deep you want to make your breathing. And your breath will help you process what you're experiencing and diving into your heart. Your heart has all its own medicine, and so your heart will give back to you the answer to the pain you might be feeling. If you are going through any significant change, there's always pain. And it could be very, very counterintuitive to go into your heart because that's where the pain is. But your heart also has the capacity to hold the change, to hold the pain, because it holds your whole life and it holds the perfection beyond our limited concept. I remember when I was going through a divorce and I was very young and I was completely disoriented from what would happen to me, and I felt very alone. My heart was bleeding. My mind was in chaos from that level of change. The world was spinning and spinning me out. And this was before I found heart rhythm meditation, which is what we're practicing this evening. But I knew I had to go into my heart because deep in my heart was the only place that I felt stillness. It was like the eye of the storm that was my emotions, the eye of the storm that was the disorientation of the change. And deep in my heart, that's where I could feel the stillness, the anchor into my true self. You have to dig though, so go ahead and dig and find that part of yourself. And start to breathe in rhythm with your heartbeat to the best of your capacity. You can always practice that again and again until you get it. Maybe placing the sacred word on your heartbeat that you choose for yourself. Self sufficiency comes from self belief, and sometimes you have to find the light that is still inside when all the other lights go out. And that's that same center, that's that same eye of the storm, the light of your truest being in the depth of your heart, in the depth of your longing. There's a light there. There's a truth there. Let it almost burn your heart. Feel it in yourself and let it burn your heart in order to cook your heart, in order to let your heart remember what's real. It's a part of yourself that cannot be broken. Maybe the only part of myself, yourself, that cannot be broken. Because it is the essence of life itself in your own heart, reflected in your own heart. Let it be brighter and stronger with every breath you take. Grow your connection to this part of yourself. And let this power within you, this light within you, grow to such an extent that you finally remember yourself again. Remember. Put the member, put all of the different parts of yourself back together. Remember. Through your center, through your soul, which is at the depth of your heart, the deepest part of your core. Let it change this light. Let it change the way you see the world. Let the light go up through your body and out your eyes as if now you're seeing the world from this part of you. And I don't even want you to look too far out in the world. I just want you to look out from yourself, from your true self, while staying deeply anchored in that true self. This is self confidence. Being anchored in your truest sense of self will give you the self confidence you need to have faith in your own capacity, to have faith in your own ability to do whatever you want to do now, whatever you want to pursue now. Try to go back into that deepest part of yourself, and then I want you to look, what's the next step? It's almost like you're staying so deeply anchored in your true self, and you're just thinking, what do I have to do right now? I know eventually I want XYZ, right? Eventually that's what I want. But right now, what's the most needed step for me to take? What is my basic need in this moment? What do I need in order to get from here to that high mountain top I want to get to eventually? Failure does not matter in life. What matters is standing still. When we stand still, then we feel like it is death. But when we keep moving, that is when we are always going toward the light. But I feel more like the light that we're going toward is bringing the light that's deep in our heart, deep in our soul, out into fruition. We're going toward that longing, that yearning in ourselves, toward the one who is within, and the one life that we want to live. This is your orientation after the change. Thank you. When you're ready, move your body and open up your eyes, friends.
Nice meditation. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you. Mm.
Well, looks like our time is at an end here. Um, we'll be back
Mm.
next week. And of course, if you'd like to support the show, we have a link to the Patreon below. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Isn't that what one is supposed to say at the end of one of these?
Perfect.
Good night, everyone. And if you have a
Good night,
question,
everyone.
please put it in the comments or get in
Mhm.
touch with Leah or I on Twitter or on Instagram. We'd love to hear from you. All right. Take care,
We'd love
everyone.
to hear from you. Bye.